That's pretty quiet in here, isn't it? Nice and quiet. Anyone is up for a chat or waiting for something? All right. Thanks.
Okay, let's start the session now. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Archie, your host for today's webinar. Guys, we're excited to have you with us. If you need anything during the session, just drop your message in the chat box. Today's topic is Copilot for developers, extending and embedding AI into business application. This webinar is brought to you by the Azure Tech community, a growing space for learners who are passionate about cloud, AI, machine learning, IoT, open source, and DevOps. Stay connected, stay updated, and keep learning with us. Today's session is sponsored by Synergetics and Microsoft. Synergetics is one of India's leading tech learning partners, help students and professionals upskills in cloud, AI, DevOps, and modern technology. Our mission is simple, guys, empower you with real industry ready skills to grow in today's tech world. Here are the different learning solutions which is offered by the Synergetics. If you like to explore a learning part or skilling journey, feel free to reach out. We are happy to guide you. This is skilling journey. Your Microsoft certification journey start with fundamental, move to role based, and finally lead to expert level certification. We also run active emerging tech communities on Meetup, completely free to join. You can be part of our communities in Pune, Gujarat, Nagpur, Indore. Just open the Meetup app and join us and keep learning new technology with like-minded people. Today's session is led by Om Prakash Pandey. He is Microsoft certified trainer and consultant at Synergetics. He brings deep knowledge in AI, cloud, and will make this session highly practical and easy to understand. Here is the agenda you can see on my screen. Guys, please follow the code of conduct to keep the session respectful and smooth. Screenshot and screen recording are not allowed. Let's maintain a safe learning space for everyone. We also run 4-day certification workshop for in-depth learning. These Saturday webinars are just a short overview. The full training happen in this workshop. We are offering special discounted pricing exclusively for attendees. For details or registration, contact us. I already shared contact details on chat box. Do follow us on our social media platform to get update on upcoming webinars, workshop and certification session. I will share all the link in the chat box. Thank you for joining. We hope you enjoy the session and learn something valuable today. Now I would like to hand over this mic to our speaker. He will continue ahead.
Thanks a lot, Archie. Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining on time. It gives me immense pleasure to see so many participants join in. Archie has already shared all the details on the chat and she will repeat the postings on the chat as we go ahead. Welcome to our session, building and extending our own agents using pro code capabilities in multiple business domains. As part of today's environment, Microsoft has provided lot of options through which one can leverage on Copilot chat. People can work with different set of members available. Leveraging on these options are possible through a simplest user interface through Microsoft Copilot chat. We can take it to the next level using M365 Copilot license. As we proceed ahead, and with increased amount of complexities, and if you want more additional features, we have Microsoft 365 agent SDK available, extensibility in terms of Teams environment. Apart from this, we have options available through AI Foundry, and depending upon our requirement, we can take it ahead, create own custom models, train them using Auto ML, ML Studio kind of solutions. You may realize that depending upon what is our need right now, there are multiple options available. I forgot to mention about Copilot Studio, which is another low code no code solution which can be leveraged, which can be enacted upon to make sure we have right kind of implementation being done within our custom environment, within our resources that we have. My name is Om Prakash Pandey, and I'm proud to be part of Synergetics IT Services Private Limited. I work as VP Technology Delivery, and ensure every individual, whether they are coming to us via partner channel or meetup ecosystem, every time when I connect to them, I share something new, something in terms of emerging technology space. And today's session is aligned to those kind of resources over here. Before we go deeper into today's session, let me quickly run through the Copilot stack which is available. Some part of it I have already mentioned earlier. If we see the conversational AI, this is something which is being adopted extensively. And here if we see, every organization is going through each of these options like which I mentioned earlier, understanding what is their expectations, their requirement, what is their complexity, and choosing right set of tools, platforms to start with, and start leveraging on these resources as handy assistants for their day in day out tasks and activities. So whether it is employees, whether it is end customers, both of them are leveraging on these resources to enhance their productivity, make sure they are aligned to their SLAs, and they are able to service the end users in much smoother and faster format. As far as the departments are concerned, each department can have their own scenarios, they can have their own implementation options. Before I go deeper into this Copilot stack, more from implementation point of view, talk more about the implementation resources, I would quickly want to share this link with all of you all from a business point of view. I have a understanding when it comes to technology. Technology is supposed to solve business problems. And here if we see, we can see the various scenarios aligned by specific departments within a given organization, which could be customer service, which could be communication, legal, operations, marketing, sales. I have shared this link on the chat. You all can go through that. Right now, I have chosen sales as a environment over here, and the same statement which I made as part of initiating my session. Here you all can see the scenarios where you can get started with basic resources based on increased complexity. Go for Microsoft 365 Copilot as a licensed product. Extend this by using Copilot Studio. Use specialized resources like Microsoft 365 Copilot for Sales. And if still that does not solve our problem, we can go ahead, build resources on top of it by using agents, applications, and have custom LLMs being added over here within our environment. We can have automated process flows and integration with organization specific knowledge source, business applications, databases. So luckily I jumped into a scenario where it has all the four options. It may not be applicable to every member or every resource because each department will have a different kind of complexity. Now one would say, Om Prakash, what are you trying to convey as a message? So guys, what I'm trying to tell you all is, just because there are developer options does not mean that we should start attacking that area or start creating or developing things using the last option available. Please first understand what is your problem and is that problem addressable by using readily available out of the box solutions. If yes, please use that. Please leverage that. If there is small tuning, small fine tuning, changes, knowledge sources, any other options which can help you achieve the required objective, please do that. If you are still facing a problem in terms of speed, in terms of the application requirements, other resources, then try out other options. If there are pre-built solutions, build versus buy kind of thing, try that out. If still that does not work, yes, you have extensibility option. And this session is about extensibility. This session is focusing on that area, but that's not the only option, and that's what I'm trying to tell you all. Just keep these links handy. You all can go through it later, not a problem. And for each department, they have showcased few scenarios with presentation and other details which can help you all to map requirements within your department or within your customer's environment. Let me proceed ahead. Now, since I said this session is about extensibility, so I'll directly jump into those scenarios, assuming that you all have already evaluated the previous out of the box options. Why would an organization go for customizations or extensibility, right? This is primarily looking at whenever an organization wants to go for conversational AI at scale. So initially it was within few set of folks who had taken initiative saying, Om Prakash, being a VP of an organization, since you are pushing us in adopting this, we will start trying it out, right? 3-4 people, chosen folks across different departments, they started working. They saw their response speed improvising, their productivity improvising, word of mouth, it spread to other people within that department. Across functional departments, the conversations became smoother, organized, uh, rightly formatted, correct use of templates, right? Now people started coming up saying, Oh Prakash, can we also get a license for it? Okay. Specific R&D wing, they came to me saying, Oh Prakash, we have a slightly complex kind of requirements, preemptive implementations, predictive analysis. We want to go into more details of those areas which I think the current out of the box available resources are not helping us, right? So Depending upon that and many other such requirements, I will have to start looking at the conversational AI at scale. Now here, if you look at the issues or challenges that could happen, so one aspect which I mentioned earlier was build versus buy. So what is the budget? What is the time constraints for it? And what are the infrastructure requirements, especially when it comes to fine tuning a model, right? That's where you will require right kind of infrastructure. When it comes to LLMs, hyperparameters mapping, that's will require right kind of infrastructure. Now these models that we are talking about, they have to be hosted and made available through API endpoints. And like I gave an example, initially I had 10 to 15 people, no problem. Now I have 10,000 people within my organization and people outside my organization who would want to leverage on a specialized knowledge source which I have. Now in that scenario, the number of requests will be much higher. Correct? So how do I tackle those number of requests which is coming in? If I want to integrate with some of my pre-existing business systems, and if you all are aware about when it comes to agents, these agents are not just about models. Model is just one aspect of it. Other members would be custom knowledge sources within our organization, which has to be mapped by using a vector database, and we also have other tools which are associated, which could be our functions, which could be logic apps, which could be Azure automation, or any other member which is available. If there is a pre-existing line of business application, how do we leverage on that? Okay, so that's where we'll be looking at the resources. Apart from this, technical expertise will matter a lot. So I mentioned about build versus buy. Why would somebody want to buy some of these things? Because yes, I know there is AI Foundry. I know there are options for fine tuning, creating your RAG pipeline, right? Creating a DevSecOps or DevOps, MLOps kind of environment. I know that, but I don't have my people or team which is aware about Python basics or aware about .NET or Java as a technology in a depth that they can implement these things, right? So technical expertise could be one of the challenge areas. Apart from this, content maintenance, making sure we have readily available latest contents, latest information or details available for it, that would become a challenge. Most important member when we talk about knowledge sources and making sure these knowledge sources are made available to people outside organization, that's where we have security and compliance. I don't want to deal into that area right now, but parallelly it is a in-depth kind of study and there are a lot of solutions available from perspective of security and compliance aspects. I'll throw some light on this as we move ahead throughout our session. So these are some of the challenges which will force an organization to look out for some of the pre-existing pre-built resources and pre-built SDKs and APIs which will help us to leverage on the LLM resources rather than creating things from scratch. I spoke about this a lot, so I don't want to repeat that again, but this is the same thing which I mentioned in a diagrammatic format. So there is out of the box resources available, time to build is much lesser. As far as pro code is concerned, the time to build will be slightly higher. Good solutions, your Copilot chat, M365 Copilot, that is what we can leverage, where is minimal of code required, and Copilot Studio powered by generative AI, and it also allows us to provide our details, provide implementation resources, right? This is something which is very widely used across all organizations today. I'm not sure how many of you are connected with me and Synergetics as an organization on LinkedIn. If not, please do connect with us. Archie, Manish, myself, Om Prakash. You all can connect with a lot of our team members. Very recently, we had delivered a session at Pune Tech Community in collaboration with AIT Global, where more than 10 teams have created their agents, created their resources using Copilot Studio, and I was really surprised about how they chose different kind of environment ranging from security, Microsoft Sentinel, to stock market implementations, leveraging on the reading the graph out of it, then looking at DevOps environment, creating a complete workflow for meetup implementation. There were variety of scenarios in business context which they were implementing, and it was all done within 1.5 hours. A live hackathon where first half we had the implementation, the detailing of Copilot Studio, and the next half they could go ahead and implement. So once we have the right information, right details regarding our business requirement, these tools can quickly help us leverage on these members, leverage on these resources, and build things faster. Now once it comes to our co-pilots, like we mentioned earlier, so we have options of Copilot chat, building custom copilots, extensibility, right, based on our scenario. We have Microsoft Copilot, which is making it available across multiple productivity tools that we have. Now what does this Copilot help us do? I'm sure everybody knows about Copilot. This is an assistant, a knowledgeable assistant, a robot that we have with us, which focuses on generative AI, which focuses on LLMs behind the scene to make itself available, to train itself based on the scenarios and resources being provided, and perform different set of tasks. Just give me a moment. As part of our implementation within Microsoft, you can see this Copilot chat available almost everywhere. So one of the easiest options could be going to your Edge as a browser. There are a lot of pre-existing sample prompts available that we can leverage upon, work with members over here. We can go to m365 copilot.com. So we can check for various resources available here. There is simple environment available, building API options, leveraging Microsoft 365 Copilot, or whatever may be your web content. So we can start from there, go into other details where we can have M365 Copilot available, or standard Copilot chat. We can leverage on the prompt gallery over here, and I'm not sure how many of you have seen this. I have just shared you all a link regarding scenario library, and you will see this is also organized in terms of functions, in terms of departments, and in terms of industry verticals, right. So all this is coming from the earlier members which is available in the scenario library. Along with this, the third option that you all see is the Copilot agent. Okay, so what type of agent you want to leverage upon? Analyst agent, sales agent, researcher agent. So anyone who has not used these things, like I mentioned earlier, I'll urge you all to first try out these out of the box available resources. Correct. So see if you, what is your need. If it is possible to resolve it by using the pre-existing chat options available, by uploading appropriate files, or going to the work section which can access your emails, access your OneDrive, SharePoint library, right. Third stage, look out for watch out for various agents available: surveys, analyst, prompt coach, learning coach, career coach. You can have third party implementations being done over here, integration with a lot of third party members available. If that does not solve your problem, go for agent creation. And as we speak, Microsoft is trying its best to make us lazy, so we don't try uh, creating code based resources, right. Most of these things as per our requirement should be available directly out of the box. It's taking some time. So what I was trying to showcase is a set of examples available for building copilots, building appropriate agents. Now that is one aspect of it. Second aspect is when individuals are looking at various productivity options using Power Platform, Power Automate, Microsoft Viva, or any other resource, each of these members, each of these resources that you have, they already have a Copilot option available. And using that option, it says, Om Prakash, if you are not sure, just tell me in a natural language what kind of automation you want me to perform. Right? You want me to read emails, put those attachments onto OneDrive. Just tell me that in normal language. I will automatically create a trigger, and I will also create set of steps required for achieving that objective. And you all must have seen, anybody who has Microsoft 365 Copilot, do you want me to draft an email, you want me to perform set of tasks, you want me to build an agent to perform a repetitive task. So these pre-built members are already available within these productivity scenarios. So this is what I have shared with you all, how one can leverage on copilots, how one can leverage on respective agents for specific departments, right. I'm sorry guys, I don't have much time on hand today, so you all can go through each of those departments, industry verticals, expand each of those scenarios to see what are the steps behind the scene. This is what my focus area for today is, that is looking at the Copilot options and the AI stack, especially from a extensibility point of view. So from an extensibility perspective, once we have leveraged on the basic things available and you have realized, sorry boss, this is not working for me, agents, custom agents, copilots, they are not addressing my question, addressing my problem, now go for extensibility. In terms of extensibility, we have Copilot Studio with low code, no code options, Visual Studio for code solutions using different set of extensions available, and we have our GitHub resources over here which can generate code. So once you know that this is what I would require, can I download the required libraries, can I get the required resources with me? Yes. Okay, go ahead with GitHub Copilot, start working on those resources. But what are the services that we are leveraging from our backend environment? So the backend environment, we have pre-existing AI infrastructure given by Microsoft, where we have number of data services, app services. We have the complete AI platform that we have. And I'm not sure how many of you have attended the recent Ignite. Now this is referred as Microsoft Foundry. So earlier it was AI Studio, then it became AI Foundry, and now it is called as Microsoft Foundry, which automatically takes care of all the critical aspects in terms of privacy, safety, security. Everything is being taken care behind the scene. So if you look at the development stack, sorry you guys, my apologies. Anyone, any questions you all might have, please put it on the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So if you look at the Copilot development stack, the most important resource aspect over here is looking for various options available. So here if you see the foundational member Microsoft Azure, where we have AI infrastructure, and as part of our environment here we have the model catalog, we have model as a service. So whether you want to go for AI hub, creating multiple projects, AI projects over there, or you want to go for Azure OpenAI service, there are a lot of pre-existing models which are available. Along with this, we have set of AI tooling, app service options available, right? So here, if you look at these resources, AI tooling resources, the new UI which is being made available to us makes our life much more simpler, much more smoother, right? So we can leverage on that, especially when we want to create autonomous agents, when we want to create agentic AI workflows. The new UI is completely aligned to that. I'm not sure how many of you have taken a look at that. If not, please take a look at it, because these are some of the primary options, primary resources that one would be looking for. Along with this, your Copilot extensibility in terms of new resources, new components which is required, right? All those things can be created and mapped over here. Along with this, in the playground, we can go and verify if it is working correctly or not, right? So those things we can map over here. Now once it comes to your development stack, you all would realize that you have large number of backend resources that we can leverage upon depending upon our requirements, depending upon our customer need, and it is made smoothly available to us through our Azure subscription. Guys, just give me a minute. I'll be back in a moment. So let's take a look at the Azure portal over here. This is not the right environment. Okay, so anybody who has not tried this out, you all should take a look at it. So when we say extensibility options available, when we say resources available, this is the utmost thing from security, privacy, compliance, content filtering, everything is made available over here. So using your Azure portal is one option. Second option is you all can directly go to the AI Microsoft Foundry portal, ai.azure.com. And like I mentioned about the new UI, you all can take a look at that as well. Okay, so if you see the options available here, so depending upon what permissions we have on the underlying environment, model catalog, playgrounds, creation of your agents, fine tuning your model, tracing, monitoring, leveraging on guardrails for security, your governance options, right? Respective web apps for hosting these members, making it available as an endpoint, right? So these are the set of options, set of resources available within your AI Foundry, within new Microsoft Foundry. Let me take it to the new UI which is given by Microsoft recently. This is more aligned to drag and drop kind of environment. Okay, so if you see this, start building. So what do you want to create? You want to create an agent, you want to create a workflow, you want to browse some of the pre-existing models that we have. I find it pretty elegant, the way how things have been organized, checking for different models, comparing those models in terms of cost, in terms of various quality parameters. So this is one, just a quick look in terms of when we talk about AI infrastructure, model catalog, model as a service. This is what we are talking about. Okay, let's proceed ahead. Let's go to the next important member over here in terms of Microsoft 365 Copilot extensibility options. How do we go ahead and extend these resources? I'll skip this slide. I don't see anything new over here. I already spoke about these members in terms of productivity app integration, understanding the work content, right? I also mentioned about this part where I said leveraging on your emails, SharePoint resources, OneDrive resources. Now how does that connectivity happens? That connectivity happens using Microsoft Graph, right? So if you are looking from a developer's point of view, we will need to have thorough knowledge of Microsoft Graph. How do we leverage on this Graph API and fetch resources from this Graph API? Now one would say, Om Prakash, when it comes to Graph API, what does it help us do? It helps us to extract information, but while extracting those details, it also takes care whether you have appropriate permissions on those resources, and even if it is part of your team within you, right? people who are working with you, or if there is any shared contents, shared details which you are eligible for accessing, so it can help you pull content from there as well. So taking care of role based access control, all these things is taken care by Microsoft Graph. Along with this, now comes the third and very important part. This I have not mentioned earlier. There are 1400 plus pre-built connectors, because R would be one environment, right? There are a lot of other online services, third party online services that we may want to leverage upon, associate with our line of business, work with our resources, right? And that would be a very, very critical aspect. Leveraging on pre-built SaaS solutions, online services which are there. What I did not mention earlier, I said I will discuss it later, was about security, privacy, compliance. So along with Entra ID, identity management, that's one important member. Along with this, we have built-in data governance, data protection, and leveraging on responsible AI, the six members that we have. So Microsoft ensures all these things are being taken care. Guys, just give me one moment, I'll be back. So few minutes ago, I have been mentioning about the Copilot chat. On extreme right hand side, here if you all see, we have details in terms of enterprise data protection. So when Microsoft talks about security, what does that mean? You all can take a look over here. Please be aware, when we are talking about data protection, this is entirely targeted towards people logging using their organizational ID. Please understand, organizational ID. If you are using Live ID, Outlook ID, Gmail ID, Hotmail ID, enterprise data protection does not apply to it. So please be aware of that. Use, whenever you are searching, whenever you are writing or uploading any organizational details, please make sure you all use your organizational ID. Now once we have our basic implementation being done, basic resource implementation done over here using Copilot chat or Microsoft 365 Copilot, right? Then we can start looking at the extensions over here using your custom options, using Copilot Studio. We can look at the Copilot lab over here. Just give me a moment. Let me go to Copilot Studio, copilotstudio.microsoft.com. So Azure Microsoft Foundry, this is the last resort, the topmost implementation option. Before that, if you want to go for low code no code solutions, here we have guys, just give me a moment. Let me log in over here within my custom environment. Copilotstudio.microsoft.com. This is another important resource where we can create customizations, where we can create extensions, where we can have our own custom copilots, agents being created. While this is loading, let me go back to my presentation. So if you look at the Microsoft 365 Copilot, what it has behind the scene, and when I have been saying that make sure your requirement is being taken care, right? So what it is providing behind the scene is our foundational models. We can have appropriate skills over here through Microsoft 365 apps, Teams, Loop, right? We can leverage on Microsoft Designer, DALI, use it for code interpretation, whatever task that you want to perform on that base model. Apart from this, our organizational content, your intranet websites, your Dataverse resources that we have, all of these would be part of your knowledge, right? So we have the foundational model, we have the skills on top of it, and we have the knowledge sources. Now if you look at these foundational models, one would say, Om Prakash, these foundational models, when I look at it, it mentions when this model was being created, and any information after that, it may not have that information, it may not have those details. Then what to do? Now guys, in that scenario, we can change these foundational models, we can replace these foundational models using the new ones, right? The new ones which are there, they will have latest information from the available general sources, generic sources that you have. What will remain same will be the skills, what will remain same would be the knowledge. And when I say remain same, in sense the sources will remain same, we may have more contents in that area. So once we change that foundational model using Copilot Studio, it will retrain itself using the new knowledge being given, it will associate with the skills which is being mapped, and this journey will keep going on, right? And that's an advantage that we have when it comes to your Copilot Studio. Now what will remain consistent would be the user experience, because all these things are happening in the backend. Now while it is connecting to third party services, grounding that information with Microsoft Graph and locally available resources, right? What it parallelly does is it will check with Microsoft Orchestrator for data governance, checking for safety and responsible AI. Now once it comes to data governance, it makes sure that none of the unwanted information, private information, secured information is not being leaked out while giving responses to the chat prompts. How does that happen? How will the chat know whether this data is secured, not secured? How will it know that? So we will have to make sure we apply set of labels, right? So whenever the data is being created, the data creators have to make sure they apply these labels. Now when I say labels, this label will mention whether it is private data, it is part of a specific compliance standard, right? All that labeling has to be done, all that sensitive labeling has to be mapped over here, and that is the core purpose of data governance. Microsoft Purview helps us to perform those activities, right? So once we have data cleansing being done, data mapping for sensitivity labels, that is something which is required and that needs to be done using Microsoft Purview. Now if you look at these agents, like I mentioned earlier, these agents will have similar kind of resource like we mentioned earlier. They will be using foundation models, they will have skills, knowledge, they will be shared with the end user. Along with this, there will be an orchestration mechanism. there will be an orchestration mechanism, and using the input which is being given, it can work with multiple foundational models behind the scene. Not just that, it can also integrate with other agents which are available, delegate some of the tasks or activities, or invoke some of these other agents and get it within our current environment. So if you look at these customization options, so one option like I mentioned is we can have the Copilot as a resource, Copilot extension being created, which is targeted towards human augmentation. A human being is going to write a prompt, and through that prompt it is going to revert back or answer those questions over here. Second option that we mentioned about was agents, and we saw both these things in Copilot chat. Along with this, I parallelly launched Copilot Studio. So here if you all see, there are set of options available: creating a managed agent, variance analysis, finance in M365 Copilot, document processor. These are some of the managed agents which will run in the managed environment. Along with this, there are a lot of other pre-built templates that we have that we can leverage upon. So here what we can do is we can create our agents. Here we can create our agents, and here if you see, I have Pune advisory agent. I just gave an example while delivering my session. I had created this resource. I have Synergetics online, I have an insurance agent. So for different organizations, while I have been working with them, I have Synergetics financial agent. I have lot of pre-existing agents being created, and these agents can be mapped with flows. These agents can be associated with different set of tools which are available. Okay, so if you see the options available here, there are free trial licenses available for Copilot Studio. You all can take a look at that. So we were mentioning about the foundational model. What type of model do you want? So do we want GPT 4.1, GPT 5 auto, right? We have GPT 5 reasoning. There are different set of pre-existing models that we can leverage over here. If we have been using this agent for a long time, any details in terms of analytics, we can see it over here. Okay, and you can see the relevant knowledge sources. If you want web search also to be enabled, we can do that. If you want to add any additional topics, these are set of pre-existing members, pre-existing resources available for us. From an integration point of view, we mentioned about large number of pre-existing options. So you can see that member over here. There are a lot of third-party connectors which are available. If you have a Power Automate environment, so you can see there are some of the pre-existing Power Automate flows which I have created that I can choose from here. I can go for MCP protocol, MCP server integration. So once it comes to your Copilot and creation of agents using Copilot Studio, this is what we can do within our new environment. And like I showed you all, these are declarative agents with connectors, API plugins that we want to map over here to extend your existing M365 Copilot. And through this combination, we can create a custom agent. So if you look at these connectors, we have Microsoft Graph connector. If you want to pull a specific value, specific set of data which is not available in the pre-existing environment, or even after retrieving that data, I want to customize it, I want to modify it and make it more applicable for my organization, right? So in these scenarios, we can leverage on graph connectors. Please be aware, graph connector is meant for data within the organization, within the environment wherever we have access. As far as Power Platform connectors are concerned, these are for third party members, third party resources here. Just give me a moment. So here we look, if you look at make.powerautomate.com, there we can see number of third party associations, or that's one option. Second option is we can go to the flows, the agent flows that I have already created, and within the agent flows, as part of the step over here, step implementation, as part of the step implementation. So here we can see large number of connectors, and with each connector there is set of values that one can mention over here. Just give it a moment. Okay, so you can see the trigger when an agent calls the flow, respond to the agent. Now between these request response mechanism, there are large set of options one can perform here. Integration with Microsoft resources, integration with third party members over here, Azure AI Foundry reference, Azure App Service reference. So when we said 1400, this is how you can see those connectors over here from your Power Platform environment and leveraging on Microsoft Graph. So if you see plugins over here, we can have API plugins. So one option is through MCP server, right? Or while we are creating the custom connectors, we can associate with our pre-existing APIs, right? So using that as an implementation, we can invoke our APIs over here. So once we have a custom connector being created, you'll be able to see that resource over here. You'll be able to see those members over here. Along with this, we also have options like invoke HTTP request. We can invoke an HTTP request, and if that API is available hosted as a web resource, we should be able to access that over here. Now some of these connectors are free connectors, whereas there are other connectors which are paid connectors. So you have to make sure which is the kind of environment that we want to leverage over here. We want to go for free connectors, or we want to go for a paid connector. I'll skip this slide. I have already discussed about the declarative agents. within the Copilot chat environment. Let's take a quick break here, 10 minutes, and once we are back, we'll go into more details of declarative agents and how do you create an agent in Copilot Studio by using the natural language. That's what we'll be focusing upon. Meanwhile, what I would recommend you all to do is go through the links which I have shared with you all, and please put your questions on the chat to make the session more interactive. Meanwhile, you all can grab a cup of tea or coffee Welcome back everyone. So before the break, we quickly discussed about what are the options in terms of Copilot implementation and how do we create extensions over here, or what are the extensibility options that we have. Let's proceed ahead and go to the next section over here in terms of how one can create declarative agents using the natural language approach. So if you see the options available, we have resources like Copilot Studio, and using the agent builder option we can leverage on that, and using natural language we can create that resource. It can be published and made available within Copilot Studio, or this can be made available to external websites or other productivity resources that we have within our environment. We can also leverage on Teams toolkit. I'm not sure how many of you are aware about it. From last one and a half year, Microsoft has been consistently working on Teams as an environment where we can create our Power Automate solutions, Power App or a specific UI kind of resource, Dataverse as a member, right? So different Teams within itself has become a environment for developing, hosting and leveraging on the underlying services. Now when we create this resource, here we have details in terms of app manifest. We can change the app icon that one would want to create, and we can leverage on respective members over here. Now if you look at the agent Copilot Studio agent builder, I showed you all the option of creating an agent over here. That's one resource which we can leverage upon. So here if you see option for creating an agent, so what type of agent you would want to create. Create an agent for handling customer queries, for learning services, so here what I am doing is using a natural language, I am creating an agent over here. The agent has been set up to handle customer queries. These would be the questions over here: course information, how do I enroll, technical issues. If I have to change any details, I can mention things over here. Learning services agent, what is the description that I would want, what is the instructions which I have to mention over here. I can specify those details, and you will see using the natural language it has already created set of members available, set of resources available here. If you want to add any kind of knowledge sources, right, you want to enable it, search websites. If you want to map specific sources within our organization, reference to people within the organization, and what capabilities do we want to add over here in terms of document creation, chart creation, code creation, right, image creation. We can enable these features while building our agent. Now these are some of the suggested prompts: course information, course details. I can add few more members depending upon my requirement. So what is the focus that I want to have over here? So I can specify details in terms of certification request. How can I learn about latest certifications. Right, so these could be set of additional prompts that I can mention, and I can provide these details, provide this configuration over here. If I want to modify or change the icon, I can do that as well. Now you'll realize there are a lot of pre-existing members over here, pre-existing agents which I have, and one of the agents which closely maps to this could be a learning coach, right? So one can decide inheriting from a pre-existing agent, and that can help us to create this resource, right? Now this might be mapping to the member, mapping to your requirement. If you want to use these resources and you are okay with the details being mentioned, go ahead, create your agent over here. So using Copilot chat as an option, I have quickly created an agent over here. So once being done, I can go to learning services agent, course information, what are the learning services or courses available. So based on the knowledge source which I may have mapped, I can get all required details over here. Right now, since I don't have that information, it will show me generic details, generic information. So this is one option of creating a custom resource. Help me with Microsoft AI certifications. So what are resources available, what are the members available. So this is how one can create a custom declarative agent. If you want to leverage on Copilot Studio, here also we can go and create our agent in a similar manner, and you will realize most of these basic information remains the same. You will not see options for inheriting from pre-existing member, but here we can go and create an agent from a given template. There are a lot of pre-existing templates available here. Let me create a new agent. Okay, so while creating the agent, I can see a similar kind of UI available, where I can mention the agent name, I can mention the instructions, appropriate knowledge sources, and you'll see this looks very similar to our agent environment that we mentioned earlier. Apart from this, if you see the additional resources, here I can add the solution name, optimum solution or default solution. I can specify the schema name over here. These would be additional details which makes it part of a complete project that we have, complete resource that we are creating. If you are not sure what type of agent you want, again we can mention our details over here, what type of agent you want. Help me creating an agent which can handle HR requests or admin requests, depending upon what kind of business scenario that one would want to implement. So based on our requirements, it can create respective prompts. The agent is now set up. I suggest the name. Would you like to use this name? Yes. Use the suggested name. So here what it is doing is it will help us build this entire agent in a conversation manner. We can have right kind of conversation being done. Can you see this HR support assistant? We can go ahead, try out these members, check with these resources, and we can create our entity, create our member over here. So my suggestion to all of you all would be, if you all have permissions on the underlying environment, if you all have a trial environment, go ahead, try this out, see if this works for you all. So once this resource is being created, like I mentioned, you can go ahead, add appropriate knowledge sources, any other tool that one would want to map, any other resource that you want to add over here, we can do that. So very simple, effective way of creating your resources. Now one would say, Om Prakash, what type of, when you say knowledge sources, what type of knowledge sources can I add over here? So if you see, the extensibility was slightly restricted or limited within our on premises, within our Copilot chat. But here if you see, you have options of public websites, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Azure SQL. These are my other knowledge sources which I had added earlier, right? So I can leverage on those members, I can leverage on those resources. I can also associate it with my SharePoint document library. I can upload some of the documents directly from my on-premises environment. I can browse items from my OneDrive, and that can be mapped as a data source. Now the aspects which we were not able to do within our Copilot chat agent is adding appropriate topics. Okay, so first thing that we have seen over here was using a natural language or using a prompt, we have created an agent. Now once you are inside this environment, here we can see set of pre-existing topics which can understand messages like hello, hi, and then revert back based on that. So trigger, what is a message that you would want, right? And once the response is being given, stop that. So here let me show you all on the test pane. So I gave a message as hello, it has triggered this particular topic, hello, how I can help you today. Need to know about HR policies. So here we can see multiple options over here, but since we don't have any knowledge source being mentioned, it will create a generic kind of response using generative AI. Right, and you can see complete debugging over here in terms of what steps are being followed. Performance management, promotion, training and development. Right, so you can see all the details over here. Apart from this, if you want to create multiple topics. We can have track between topics, enable communication or conversation between those topics, right? So right now we saw one topic over here, which is a greeting topic, and then giving it a message which is taken care by the generative AI. What if I want to create my own topic, right? For creating my own topic, here what I can do is, can you all see this? Add from description with Copilot. So again, I can leverage on HR issue redressal, whatever topic name one would want, create a topic to accept EMP ID and EMP ID, department name, and issue details from the user or from the employee. So here what I am doing is I am just mentioning what kind of implementation I want over here, right? So if you see some of the examples, accept a username, age, date of birth, let someone order a pizza, collect a user street address, state and zip code, right? So these are some of the samples I have already given. Using the context, let me go ahead, create my resource over here. Can you see this? So rather than me having to go and create these resources myself, it has actually created all these details automatically. So where it is mentioning question, please enter employee ID, department name, enter your issue, all that information is being saved, right, into respective variables. So let me go ahead, add one more message here. So here you can see there are multiple options available, starting from basic members like sending a message, asking another question, adding a condition, right? Right, so you can see department name, issue details, the variables you all can see over here. The grievance has been made note of, what was the issue, who has raised that, from which department. Okay, so I can create these topics over here. So once we have got this done, any other modification you can do it by using edit with Copilot. Can you see that? Anything that you want to enhance, change. So guys, please realize Copilot is working at both the levels. So from a top level, creating the complete agent, that's one. Second, when you are inside that agent, creating set of topics, creating set of resources, which is customizable, changeable as per your requirement. So both these things are possible here. So once we are done with it, we have got our resource ready. I want to escalate Escalate, there is another topic which is being mapped. Okay, so can I get help on issue reversal? So once it maps to the keywords within the agent, within a trigger that is being mentioned, I can mention my employee ID, I can mention the respective department name, right, and you can see the complete debugging over here. So as the execution happens, right, so whatever is the issue which has happened, which you need to be redressed, the grievance has been made note of, my customer communication did not go well, raised by employee ID from which department, right. So whatever communications that one would want to mention over here as part of conversational AI, that can be mentioned through our agent over here. So I've shown you all the agent builder option using the chat, Copilot chat environment, and also within the Copilot Studio. Now while we are working with these resources within our Copilot members, here we can add something called as APIs, right. Now what is the purpose of these API plugins? So as far as these API plugins are concerned, these are one of the important entities from agent's perspective. And if you remember, when we were talking about the agent few slides above, we mentioned about the tools, we mentioned about the knowledge source, we mentioned about the skills, right. Now some of these resources may not be existing internally to the organization, or they may not be available within the environment. So for these kind of data, we will have to go outside our environment, right, and that's where APIs will come into picture. Now when we are talking about these APIs, we can leverage on MCP server, that's one option, and recently lot of services, standard services have been published there. We have option of HTTP based resource that we can leverage upon, and even within the topic, I'm not sure how many of you all realized that. So here if you see new tool, adding a tool, so you'll see options available here. I can create Microsoft Flow, I can associate with that, I can upload a skill, right, this is another option. I can go to my agent, can you all see this, send HTTP request. So I can invoke another member, I can specify what is the URL for that API, what is the method which I want to use, get, put, post, delete. The most easiest one will be the get over here, get method. If there is any header, body or any other details being required, I can mention that. What is the response type? Generally most of the responses coming would be JSON, so I can store it as a string, and then we can do required parsing over here. How do you want to save the response, right? So response data type, save the response into another variable, and then we can work on that. One would say, Om Prakash, this is slightly confusing. So are you saying that I should invoke these APIs within the topics? The answer is no. Is it possible? Yes, it is. But the right place for doing all these things will be your Power Automate. That's where you'll have methods for parsing the JSON, converting into a CSV, transforming or extracting values from that JSON. Those kind of detailed steps are not available in topics. So my suggestion over here would be If you have a simple request response mechanism, this is decent enough. You all can work with this. Any complexity over here, any complexity that you might see, you can go to your agent flow, create your resource over here, and get that further processing being done inside your Power Automate flow. For creating custom connectors, we can go to Power Automate, or we can go to our Power App as an environment. There we will see options of custom connector, right? And while creating that, while registering that custom connector, we can specify many more details apart from what we just discussed right now. Okay, so you will see number of options available within our solution. It's taking some time. So here what we can do is we can create our resources, we can create our custom connector, and through that custom connector we will be connecting to our third party API that we have. I'm running short on time. So here what you all can look at is set of pre-existing steps, and you'll see it is much more simpler. So in terms of your Copilot extensibility options, your step number 1 would be building a API, building a resource. If you all have a pre-existing API, nothing to worry. Here we can use something called as Microsoft 365 Agent Toolkit inside our VS Code. Start a new API, whatever name one would want, right? So you can see the Agent Toolkit, and through this Agent Toolkit we can create our plugin. And as far as this plugin is concerned, this plugin has to be associated in our Entra ID. So once this is being done, so we can deploy it to Azure, enable authentication, which will do the registration. Now once that registration is being done, we will be able to invoke that plugin as and when required. So I leave the choice to y'all whether y'all would want to use GitHub code spaces for it, or y'all would want to create this resource within your local VS Code deployment. That's your choice. The link which I have, this will help you all to create your own plugins, provided you have all the required resources being built, resources being downloaded, installed, configured on your developer machine. This is what I am referring to, Microsoft 365 Agents Toolkit, and this is the option which it was showcasing: build a declarative agent, create new agent or an app. So most of these resources you all will see is also part of your VS Code environment. So what the options which we saw within Copilot Chat, within Copilot Studio, similar kind of options you all can see here as well. Okay, set up your environment, check Copilot license. So here I'll have to log in using my txfdg.onmicrosoft.com account where I have the license Right now I have this one is mapped with my Hotmail ID, which where I have my GitHub Copilot license being associated, right? So some of those things we'll have to take care. Now, if you are building this resource for your team's environment, right? So within Teams, we'll have to enable plugin development using Teams toolkit. Like I mentioned earlier, you have a complete development deployment environment within Teams platform. So you can create your plugin inside that, package your plugin, package and side load the plugin, make it available as a resource within your Teams environment, and then you can leverage on that plugin. This is one option. Second option, like I mentioned earlier, in Copilot Studio, we can publish it to be publish it using a channel to make it available to all other productivity apps. Another option that one can leverage over here is your extensions, message extensions. So you are looking at your Teams client or any other pre-existing resource. So using this options available here, right? So here we'll have our Teams client. Within Teams client, we can see it as an extension available. So this is what I showed you all, how to create custom agents within our existing environment. We can also create a custom connector over here. Let me see if my environment is ready. Yeah, here it is. So what resource you would want to create over here? So what is the custom connector which I want to mention over here? I can do that. Or else I can go to the solutions section. Within solution, I can add a custom API over there or a plugin over there. Apart from this, I have already mentioned about the significance of graph connectors. What is the relevance of graph connector? Now just give me 1 minute, guys. I'll be back. So while this Power Automate is loading, so as far as these plugins are concerned, I mentioned about registering these plugins inside our Enter ID. At times we are doing it, we might be doing it manually. If you are using a tool, it will auto register our resource within Enter ID. But apart from these plugins, even the agents that we are creating, these agents are also registered inside our Enter ID. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this recently. So you'll see options for Entra agents, which is associated with Security Copilot, and here just above your app registrations, enterprise apps, you have agent ID. Every agent that we create is actually registered inside our Enter ID. And now you'll realize I said don't use your Hotmail ID, live ID, because you'll not have access to those environments. So when you use your organizational ID, when you use your tenant ID, there you will be able to see what permission that agent carries. So here you'll see all your agents available. Can you see the recent one? So you'll see learning services assistant. Here you'll see learning services assistant agent that we just created, and we'll be able to see the properties, we'll be able to see the details over here, single sign on, provisioning, self service, what kind of permissions this agent has on the underlying system. So if you see the way how it works, so when we are building our application, when we are building our agent, here we can have multiple external data sources that we can correlate or that we can map over here, and within that agent we would want to leverage on graph API to extract some of the information through file shares, through uh, specific SharePoint features that we may want to extract, Azure DevOps connector, your GitHub implementation, right? All these things can be done using the graph API connectors. And if you see the steps being involved over here, right now what I was showing you, register the app in the portal and create the application. And where is this happening? This is happening in your Entra ID, where we have app registrations. I am not sure how many of you have seen these app registrations. If you go to your app registrations and if you go to the API permissions, right? So here we can go ahead and add Microsoft Graph permissions over here. So on which application you want permissions, and you all can see the complete details over here. There is series of resources, series of members available: chat, chat member, chat message, device, e-discovery. So complete Microsoft services and the underlying roles and permissions section gets exposed to us, gets available to us, and we can assign permissions to our application. So if you look at the Graph SDK, so till now we have seen low code, no code solutions, correct? But if you want to go for actual implementation over here, we can do that as well, especially when we are looking at APIs. Within the API, there you don't have low code, no code, unless you go for logic app and you publish that logic app as an API endpoint, or you go to functions, but even within functions you will have code. Once it comes to your Graph API or a RESTful service that you are creating, here we will have to register this application, and within that application you will be writing our code. So what is the client ID, client secret? Sorry guys, just one moment. Here if you go to the certificates and secrets, this is where you will find the information. So if you want to add a specific credential over here, managed identity, GitHub actions. So who's the issuer over here? If you want to create a client secret, what is the secret name, what is the expiry date, we can specify here. And once this information is available, so this is where you have the tenant ID, directory ID or tenant ID. That value can be picked from here, and this client secret details can be picked from here, this section, and both these values are being mapped within our graph. Okay, so using this API we are extracting lot of other information, any specific business functionality, summarization of details that one would want. All those things can be done using the API, where we have the custom code available. I'll skip this section guys, I have already shown you all these things. How do you write your details, write your information over here. and using a low code no code solution, we are able to create our agent, create respective topics within that. Now if you look at your extensibility options, so here what one can do is we can leverage on Copilot Studio, and through this Copilot Studio we can extend our environment with Azure AI Foundry. And here what we are doing is the advanced resources in terms of Azure AI search, your model catalog that you have, which I showed you all in the beginning of the session, right? Those can be leveraged within your Copilot Studio. If I put it in a simple way, Copilot Studio says generic business tasks I will be able to do. Anything in that business which is extensible, which I cannot handle internally, which is more complex in nature, please go to a pre-existing model within Azure AI Foundry, build your resources there, fine tune it over there, and let me access it as a API endpoint. The name has changed. Now this is called as Microsoft Foundry. So if you see any of your agents over here, the way how it will work is very simple steps involved where we can trigger, and as far as the trigger is concerned, this need not be always a prompt based trigger, though that's what I have shown you all right now. There could be multiple triggers as well. So it could be a email trigger or any other trigger that one would want to map over here. There would be instructions inside this agent in terms of what tasks or activities one would want to create, what is the tasks that you want to perform. Now this planning or the actions that we're talking about, this will be part of your Power Automate. Okay, if you want to do any kind of further processing, we can delegate resources to other agents, and finally we'll see a outcome here. So once being, and you'll realize that in this entire process there is no prompt involved. Prompt in sense, an individual is not writing something, they have already written the prompt, it has got the autonomous agent being created, and this autonomous agent is working on its own. So any redundant tasks that we have, somebody that we are doing it on day in day out basis, hand it over to the agent and let the agent perform that task on our behalf so that we can save on time. Okay, and whatever time is available with us, the additional time, we can innovate, look at other processes, enhance them, and we can have much higher customer productivity. That brings us to an end of this session, guys. Thank you very much, everyone. If anybody has any questions, doubts, queries, please put it on the chat. Thank you, Nikita. Guys, provide your valuable feedback. Archie has already put the feedback link on the chat.